Hey everybody, Jeff Schneider here. So when I was starting out with improvisation, I was fixated on being able to play what I heard in my head. If I didn't hear it, I wouldn't play it. And if I did happen to play something that I didn't hear, I just considered it bullshitting. For a long time, this is how I taught improvisation too. I had this belief that if you're not hearing it, you're just a button pusher. Now don't get me wrong, playing what you hear in your head is a core principle of good soloing. But for beginner and intermediate improvisers, holding yourself to that standard can be overwhelming, even paralyzing. So you might be thinking, well, if I don't put so much attention on the ear part of it, I guess that means I should be focusing on music theory, right? Not exactly. Diving too deep into the math of music can be just as debilitating as obsessing over playing exactly what you hear in your head. So that begs the question, where do we find the balance? First, we have to clarify what it means to play what you hear in your head. I used to think of it in binary terms. You're either playing what you hear in your head or you're faking it. But as I've gotten older and done a lot more improvising and teaching especially, I've come to think of it in terms of more of a spectrum. So on one end of the spectrum, you're communicating a musical vision to the T, like you have all the pitches, the phrasing, the rhythm, the sound, it's all there, it's in your head and you're getting it onto your instrument flawlessly. That's the ideal. On the other end, you're just bullshitting. You're pushing your fingers down on the keys or the buttons of your instrument and hoping for the best. Most of us live somewhere in the middle, but if you feel like you're on that end of the spectrum where improvising is just, it feels like button pushing, and you want to get to the other end where you have this musical vision that you want to communicate through the vehicle that is your instrument, well, you can't just snap your fingers and get from here to there. You have to travel along that spectrum. And one of the ways that you can do that is by focusing not on pitches. I think of pitches as like the last step, but rather focus more on rhythm and phrasing. And that's what we're going to talk about today, using an exercise. And it's not even an exercise, it's something you can actually do in a real solo. It's called the Chromatic Method. I call it the Chromatic Method because you're going to be using the chromatic scale. You don't have to know any other scales to do this. You're not even going to be really thinking about pitches. You're just going up the chromatic scale and back down. So there's no music theory here. You don't have to be worrying about, do the notes line up with the chords, because in many cases they won't, but that's not going to matter. And here's why. Instead of focusing on pitches, instead of trying to hear each individual pitch in your head before playing it, you're going to focus on the rhythm and the phrasing. These are the bigger shapes that go into playing a good solo. In my course, The Soloing System, I go deep into this philosophy of holding off on the details of the nitty-gritty music theory and focusing more on the quote-unquote bigger shapes so that you can get better at soloing faster. If you want to take that course or any of my other courses, I'm actually offering a Labor Day 30% off sale right now. You can check out the link to the soloing system and a link to all of my other courses. Just use the coupon code Labor Day at checkout to save 30%. And that discount code can be applied to all of my bundles and my lick packs and my chord packs, everything in the store. So it's all linked up in the description below. So let's jump into the Chromatic Method. And yes, this is an exercise, but you can actually implement this stuff in real solos as well. So let's take a look here. We've got 10 rhythms, and you can download this sheet music for free. It's linked below. We're going to go through one rhythm at a time. And the idea here is to play the chromatic scale using the rhythms. I'm going to throw on a backing track, just Autumn Leaves, and you're going to hear how this sounds. There are going to be some notes that don't work on a technical level, but what I'm going to try to do here is focus on my phrasing and obviously my rhythm to make it sound good regardless of the fact that the notes don't align with the chords. Check it out. Okay, so you loop it a few times to get a feel for the rhythm. This is a really basic one that we're going to start with. It's your basic ride cymbal pattern, like the dang, 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 da, dang, dang, dang. What I want you to focus on is making sure that you don't rush those quarter notes. Whenever you have consecutive quarter notes, a lot of people rush those. They'll go like da, da, da. You want to give each quarter note a lot of value. Da, 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 do, da, 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 da. So I'm actually feeling like this invisible upbeat. Da, da, da. And you can hear it. I'm doing this like, maybe you can hear it. It's like a guttural sound like da, 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 where I'm feeling the offbeat so that the quarter notes have that pocket where they're not being rushed. Also, I've got a little bit of articulation written in here. I've got an accent on that and of 4. If everything is the same, then it's going to get boring. And by the same, I mean dynamically speaking. So adding that accent will give you that more 3-dimensional quality to your phrasing. Don't rush the quarter notes and make sure you have some dynamic contrast. That's the crux of it. Okay, let's go to rhythm number 2. Okay, same kind of thing. Don't rush the quarter notes and don't rush the 8th notes. Don't rush anything. That is the most common feedback I give to people when I hear them play is to don't rush. The quarter notes are some of the worst offenders. Also, when you have an accented note, there's a real tendency I find that people tend to get to those notes too soon. So make sure you don't rush into those accented notes. Oh, and there should be a tie here. Basically, you're looping back around to the beginning. And just to be clear, what I'm doing is I'm going up the chromatic scale, going down, changing direction kind of whenever I feel like it, but I'm just not thinking about notes. I'm trying to make these rhythms sound and feel as good as possible. It's similar to how a drummer would practice. When a drummer practices, they pick a groove and they play that groove over and over again until it feels good. That's what we're doing here. We're practicing like a drummer, and what that will allow you to do is play anything and make it sound good, even a chromatic scale. Now you can also combine these rhythms. So here's what it sounds like when I go from 1 to 2. When you start adding that variation, it sounds less and less like an exercise and more like real music. Let's check out rhythm number 3. This one's great because there's a lot of flow. Each one of those anticipated 8th notes launches you into the next measure or next strong beat, da ba do da ba do da ba do da. Now, if a rhythm like this is giving you trouble, chances are it's because you're not feeling the downbeat that follows the upbeat, the accented upbeat, the syncopation. So what you have to make sure is that you feel, in this case, beat 3, beat 1, beat 3, and then of course beat 1 when it ties back to the beginning. Ba ba do da ba do da ba do da. If you can, clap and sing the rhythms, and that will ensure that you're feeling the beat and also singing the syncopated rhythm on top and keeping those two separate. What you don't want is this, ba ba do ba, where you actually clap what you're singing, the syncopated line. That's not good. You want to keep those two separate. Ba ba do ba do ba do ba. One of my favorite techniques is something I call an air accent, which is where you actually emphasize the note that you wouldn't normally play. So instead of going ba ba do da, you go ba ba do da, where I put a little bit of emphasis on that note that is actually tied over from, in this case, the and of 2. That air accent can help you stay grounded and aware of where the beat is. That's your pro tip of the day. Let's go on to number 4 now. So this one's pretty cool because you're actually doing a little bit of metric superimposition where this rhythm, ba ba do ba do ba, it's actually a rhythm that's in 3. Ba ba do ba do ba. I have 3 beats for each one of those cycles. Number 5 goes like this. just there, I ended on an E flat on an A minor 7 chord, which is a little bit of a dissonant note. But because there's so much context provided and consistency provided by the rhythm, and there's focus on the phrasing, which makes everything sound good, the wrong note is not such a problem anymore. Now, again, I'm changing direction whenever I feel like it. It doesn't matter what note you start on. You just go up and down the chromatic scale. That's it. By the way, this note right here, it's in parentheses because you're not really playing it. It's just tied over from the end of the cycle there back to the beginning. What else? This is a really good one, number 5 that is. This is a great one for working on laying back on the beat and not rushing. So check this out. I'm going to snap the beat and sing quarter notes that are a hair late. So 1, 2, 3, 4, ba, 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 ba. Everything's a little bit after the snap. And that creates this nice tension and good sounding phrasing that doesn't feel rushed, because it's the opposite of rushed. It's actually delayed, but that's a good thing. So I'll play it one more time. Listen to how I really lay back significantly this time around. This is still number 5. So I'm really pushing it, but that sounds better than rushing. And again, if the tendency is for people to rush, I'd much rather you lay back on the beat than be too far on top of it. Okay, on to number 6. This one's very similar to number 5. We've just got a little more activity right in there. Again, practice these individually like a drummer, making them feel as good as possible, and then you can combine them, and that'll make it sound less like an exercise and more like a real solo. On to number 7. This one's great. It's really going to help you with flow. We've almost got consecutive eighth notes all the way through with a little bit of a break, and check out how this one sounds. This is number 7. One thing that I'm also doing is I'm not swinging the notes in a traditional way. I'm not going ba-da, 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 ba. That sounds a little hokey. The way I'm approaching it is I'm playing the eighth notes fairly straight, but I'm using accents to help create that swing feel. So another tendency, in addition to rushing, is people overdoing the whole da 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 swing feel. It ends up sounding hokey. So if you straighten out those eighth notes and you just put the accent on the upbeat, that will get the same effect, but it'll sound more relaxed, a little more just pro. It's going to sound better. So take a listen. I'll emphasize the straightness of the eighth notes this time, and then I'll bring the accents back so you can hear what that does. So that's without the accents, and I'll bring them back in now. I'm really trying to exaggerate it. I probably end up in some sort of a middle ground when I'm actually doing this, but if you focus on straight eighth notes and just add in that accent on the upbeats, your swing feel is going to sound so much better. Let's go to the 8, 9, and 10. These are all based on triplets. So first you want to be able to play regular triplets like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you also want to be able to play quarter note triplets like 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, once you can do those two things, then you can play 8, 9, and 10, and that's what these sound like. So I'll play number 8 first. Okay. Number 9, kind of similar, a little bit more interesting. Now number 10 is tricky, but it's a really cool sound, and that's because I'm grouping the triplets in groups of 4. So we've got a group of 4 right here, a group of 4 right here. That's 1, 2, and then this quarter note is 3, 4, and then the same thing here, 1, 2, 3, 4. one's a lot of fun, but it is tricky, so you might want to practice it a little slower. And once you feel comfortable with all of these, and you're mixing and matching, and it sounds less like an exercise, another thing you can do to add some variation is, instead of just going up and down the chromatic scale, you can go up and down chromatic patterns. So let's take number 2 here, and instead of going up the chromatic scale, I'm going to do this pattern. So I'm starting on whatever note I start on, go down a half step, then go chromatic up to a major third or a minor third from where I started. So if I start on E, I'm going to end up on a G. Sounds like this. And then it's repeated. It's still the chromatic scale. I'm just breaking it up a little differently. And more importantly, I'm not thinking about notes or theory. I'm just focusing on rhythm and phrasing. If you can get your rhythm and phrasing strong, it doesn't actually matter what notes you play. Those are the details. You can focus on them later. Everybody skips over rhythm and phrasing. Don't let that be you, and use the chromatic method to help you get there. Again, this sheet music is downloadable in the link below. And if you want to check out more of my courses, you can check out, also linked below, the sale, the Labor Day sale. Use code Labor Day to get 30% off. Until next time, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.